Let's go!
Welcome into Behind the Brand Podcast. I'm Adam Hayes. To my right is my co-host, Bob Paden. In the middle is our guest today, T. Ray Phillips with Family Business Legacies.
Welcome. Well, thank you guys. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
This is kind of what, round two, if you will?
Round two.
Yeah. Round one with you, but round two with you. It's kind of fun to be back.
Fair.
It's always great to have you.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
So T. Ray, there's more to T. Ray than meets the eye.
Oh gosh, are you sure you only have an hour of a podcast for this?
We got as much time as you want.
Is it like peeling lettuce or an onion?
Well, there's a little bit of both, right?
Yeah.
Depends on whether you want flavor with a little tears. No, so T. Ray is a family name, and granted. And I'll spell it because this is where everybody kind of is convinced that I'm lying. T. Ray, capital R-A-Y. And so she says, oh, well, the period. So what does the T stand for? I'm like, well, it doesn't. It's part of my first name. Well, so, but you have a period. I'm like, well, on my legal document, T. Ray, that is my first name. I have no middle name. And they're like,
that can't be.
That can't be right. You know, and I'm like, well, you're right. The computers hate it, right?
Yeah.
Whenever I try to put that in, they say, I'm sorry, you need to enter in your legal name. I'm like, that's what my document says.
Right.
So
it's right here on my birth certificate.
Now, history behind it is my great-grandfather, is that right? Yeah, great-grandfather was Thomas Ray. And his son was T. Ray, right? Or his nickname was T. Ray, but he also was Thomas Ray. But the thing got around to where I guess he didn't like he always went by T. Ray. And when my dad was born, so my grandfather was Junior, Thomas Ray Jr., but my dad was T. Ray the third, meaning the Ray got moved from the middle name to the first name. Right. Thomas disappeared except for the period, right? And away we go. So only to make it more.
Fourth,
so I'm the fourth, even though technically I'm the second, right?
Yes.
Right? Yeah, even though I'm the second. I mean, we're from Oklahoma. We can do these things, right? Rules don't apply to us. And then, so only to make it more confusing is when our son was born, we said, well, let's move the Ray back to the middle name and bring back the Thomas. Our son is Thomas. However, Thomas Ray, right? But he's the fifth, right? So we just said we're going to keep the numbering, only to make things more confusing.
Who's the fourth? Yeah,
right.
At least you have a story behind it.
We have a story behind it.
So what's the most unique name that you've gotten called on a telemarketing call?
I will. Telemarketing may be different, but I get Ray a lot. I get Trey a lot, right? Yeah. If they don't see the period or if it's kind of close together. But I will say is not necessarily telemarketing. What I get a lot of times is T-Rex. Granted, T-Rex.
Yes, I'm a dinosaur.
Can you read?
Well, not just that, but there's well, sort of, and I kind of have fun with that. But I will say this happened way back when I was a kid. Right, and so you call in those radio shows and say, request line, and I'd say my name, like T-Rex. Well, evidently, what was it? You're the musician. There was a musician,
right?
T-Rex.
Yeah.
I don't know who it is. I never listened to the guy. But whoever that musician was is T-Rex, and so most will not the dinosaur reference. Those in the radio still reference the T-Rex, the musician. So I get that. That's my most unique.
Okay.
Otherwise, I'm the dinosaur.
What's the craziest name you've ever been called? That's incorrect.
That may not be appropriate for camera
broadcast.
All right, we'll skip over that.
Well, funny enough, my grandfather, because we're from Oklahoma.
I'll forget about that. Yeah.
His was Taylor A.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the A stands for something. But I'd have to now go look it up because it makes me wonder if that's an Oklahoma.
There is a little bit of the two-name thing that is probably playing, Billy Bob, Jimmy Ray, all those things. T-Boone, right? Yeah. And see, and again, I don't think on T-Boone Pickens, I don't think the T stands for anything.
It's a T. Right.
It's a T. I think it's just a T. So we're allowed to do that in Oklahoma.
Right? It just takes you longer to get things out, so you have to put,
Well, here's the other
letters
pressure.
And periods.
That's true. But here's the other pressure it puts on me. I have a unique name. It's one of those names like nobody forgets the name.
Correct.
Right? that means I have to work 3 times as hard to remember everybody else's name. Right? Yeah. I mean, it has been a lifelong exercise. I've got to remember their name. How do I, so
how's that working?
Well, I was probably better before I became a little older, right? And I started losing my brain cells, right?
It varies by mileage.
That's exactly right. I'd say maybe I've gotten worse at it over the years.
We all had him as bearded man with hat. Yeah, that's what I call it.
hat beard.
Yeah. Right. So it's still an exercise that I undertake of saying, got to remember the name. I generally is if I don't say that person's name 3 to 4 times in the next first 5 minutes after meeting, I will have forgotten.
It's gone.
Yeah. I think everybody's got that way, but I know I've got the higher pressure because people will still remember me. And I'm like, who was that?
T-Ray. No, it's not T-Ray. That's me.
Anyway.
So Family Business Legacies. Tell us a little bit about that. We're kind of like a restaurant where we just wait for you to take a drink or a bite of something.
Right. And ask that question.
Here's a sandwich.
So Family Business Legacies, it was it started back in 1998. So I had gotten into the financial services business in 96 after spending about 4 years in more of the health insurance world, serving, rural farming families or small businesses in the rural communities. But I wanted to be more kind of in the community here because I was always traveling, more than an hour and a half outside and not really spending much time in Indianapolis. And so I got into the financial services, but 2 years in, I looked back at the whom I was serving, who did I really enjoy doing business with, and it ended up being it was still privately held, family-owned businesses. It was just that's who I naturally enjoyed being around. Nothing against them, and there's people who do really, really well serving them. I'm really not good with doctors and engineers.
Yeah.
They need help just like anybody else, but it's a connection. So that was a natural thing that kind of came about. And so I shifted my practice to become more intentionally concentrated on working with the owners of privately held companies. And from that, it even narrowed it further down into construction, manufacturing, distribution, some agriculture. There was some natural progression in agriculture. And then I liked to stay within a pretty defined area so that I'm not, again, I don't necessarily want to always travel 3 hours to go see somebody. I will, but I'd rather not because you don't need to.
Yeah.
And so from there, I was introduced. So I had my practice. It wasn't the current name, the business of the current name that it is now. But I had been introduced while I was developing my practice to a group out of Oklahoma City that my dad was affiliated with. My dad was a state and business planning attorney. Okay. And these guys in Oklahoma City had developed this workshop and service model to also work with family-owned businesses. And they called themselves Family Business Partners. And spent a lot of time intentionally saying, how do we work with other advisors that serve owners and collaboratively work to help them through that? I'm like, well, shoot, they're doing what I'm already doing up here. However, they just have a nice package around it, if you will. And so I became Family Business Partners of Indiana at first. And then I branched off from that to become Family Business Legacies is what it is now. So I just changed the name because that's actually
more descriptive, I think, maybe of what you.
Well, it is. But thank you. I mean, I think so too. But again, it was just it's just like all things that the brands that kind of develop and you kind of work through stuff. It evolved. But again, Family Business Legacies is truly what I think represents who I like to serve, and it's a lot of fun.
Especially, I mean, the owners we serve, because I serve same. Is they are concerned with the legacy, right? Even that becomes a challenge sometimes, but that is on their mind. Not necessarily the money is important, but the longevity of that business after they're gone is always a discussion, whether it's with their family or even not.
Well, no, that's true. So, and I think you hit it very much on the head. Most would think, oh, you're only working with businesses and the families that wants to continue in the family. And that's not really the case. It's very few that actually are potentially even have the capacity to be successful to remain in the family, right? But it is, will the brand continue, right? Doesn't matter who's running it, will the brand continue?
Right.
And that really is more of the legacy piece. And then a lot of people say, well, I'm not really a family business. I don't have any family in the business. Family businesses are really more of it's more of the culture and the mindset of how a business will operate.
Sure.
And so I have found, which is I think to most owners' surprise, very big businesses are still very much family businesses by the way they run, by the way they interact, or the culture they want for their employees, right? Family or otherwise.
Yeah.
Sure.
So,
Nice.
so anyway, yeah, that's been
Well, that's
fun.
kind of the beauty of a family-owned business as well. Being able to build the culture that you want, your way, and
Sure.
and setting that vision.
I think that's also a lot of reasons why most family-owned businesses do not want to sell to third party.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. And again, you're going to make a lot of money if you can sell to a third party. There's going to be no argument. If you're attracted by a third party buyer, strategic or otherwise, there's a lot of money on the table, and it's sometimes very hard to think about walking away from.
Yeah.
But it's almost always the case, with very, very rare exceptions, and I'm sure we all can have seen only of those few exceptions, where that culture does not massively shift when it's a third party.
Yeah. Almost impossible not to in some ways.
Yes.
And then not just the company, right? It's the impact to the community.
Correct.
I was working with a company down in Shelbyville, and it's a third generation, commercial laundering business, and it's like they would be a perfect candidate. I mean, Cintas is begging them to sell to them. But they knew immediately, because they knew Cintas's footprint and its distribution structure and its other operations. As soon as they do that, there would be 50 people out of a job in Shelbyville. Yeah. And so that's a pretty common scenario that I think that now that's another element of legacy, right? Yeah. It's, I made a lot of money. I don't mean me, but the owner, but No. but now I put 30 people out of work that are essentially, I've always thought of as family myself.
Right.
Yeah. So that's a big deal.
Goes back to culture.
Yeah. Goes back to culture. So,
T-Ray, how do people come to discover they want to engage with you and use your services? What problems are they trying to solve for their businesses?
Well, that's a good question. The most common one that I continue to see is the fact that an owner has been around. They've created something. It's not like, this isn't like they started the business last year or even in the last 5, maybe even 10 years, but it's been operating now for a while, and they know that I would call them, they're past the lucky truck stage, right? Right. It is, is there still the ability of the business or the necessity of business to improve some operations and gain? Sure, that's always the case. But there's now something there. And more often than not, they have had some peer close to them, known to them, that has had something happen. Some event. Some events happen. Now, it doesn't have to be somebody is physically an event, right? This could be, another peer of theirs went bankrupt. Another peer had suffered massively through some recession or some other event. Something major has occurred, and it finally hits them. They say, oh, wow. If that happened to me, how do I make sure I don't have that outcome? Right. So those become, and just because that may happen doesn't mean now they immediately say, I'm going to go find somebody and start to work on this one. That's sort of it generally takes a little bit of processing time. I would, sometimes a couple of years before it eventually hits. But then they also recognize, like, I do love what I'm doing. I'm actually good at it, or, I have the energy to do this. 15 years from now, 20 years from now,
I don't want to be
10 years from now, if I'm working my butt off like I am right now, I'm in trouble. This is not what I want to be. So I would say there's a whole lot of different ways, but those two types of scenarios, that realization that one day I don't want to be doing this, or something happened to somebody else and I don't want that to happen to me, those are very major catalysts to say, where do I go?
Sure.
And a lot of times they'll turn to their accountant or their attorney, and sure, they can put together some legal document, or some larger accounting firms have a business specialist inside of their operation. But I wouldn't necessarily call either of those things truly legacy planning, business continuity planning,
comprehensive view of their life. I call it
full comprehensive. It's absolutely correct. Full comprehensive succession planning, right? In a way that doesn't look like, hey, you have to sell to a third party, right?
Yes.
So,
what would that make me just think of? Go on, Adam. Sorry, I just thought, it's gone. I'll think of it later.
So you've been doing this since 1998.
Formally, yes.
Yeah. So tell us about a couple of your favorite scenarios that have happened for you in helping owners.
Well, one of them is actually about to finish like within 30 days, and it's not the one you and I are working on, right? Although that's pretty fun too.
Yeah.
The one that's finishing in about 30 days has been a company or guy I've been working with for almost 12 years. And I was invited he was in a peer group, kind of like the ones we all have. It was sort of an ownership peer group. Call it like a Vistage, if most people will know what that is. And I was asked to speak to the group on the subject of exit planning. And I have workshops that kind of introduce what are the challenges and issues, and what are some typical tools or processes owners should consider. Well, one guy started asking me questions, which of course that's the purpose of these workshops, right? That's what they're meant to be. It's educational. and it was, I didn't intend it to come off this way, but it was after about the fifth or sixth question, I said, you know what, here's what we need to do. We need to go offline because you need to hire me.
Right.
I didn't plan that. I really didn't plan that. I mean, I was not trying to be flippant, and it was just.
Well, you spoke it into existence.
I spoke it into existence, and to this day, he still tells that story. Like lovingly, he tells that story, right? And
before question limit is what you're saying.
I tell you what.
And so I worked with him, and they're actually they do it's more of a service-based business, so it doesn't exactly fit the construction distribution world, but it's still a very good business. And so we worked through, and since the time we've become very good friends. And I remember he had another advisor, more of an operational consultant, maybe more in the lines of kind of what you do.
Right.
And he was convinced that his best salesperson, or his best operating, secondhand person, a woman, says there's no way in the world she will ever be able to take over this business.
Right.
And yet he had an instinct that it was.
Challenge accepted.
Right. And so working with them, right, over these last years, he put he put challenges to her. Here's what I need you to do. She met those challenges. Nice. She rose to the occasion, and they've had some pretty good reorganizations in their service industry model that they're in. I mean, there's been some tough times, and in fact, about 3 years ago, they were like, are we ever going to actually get another engagement for work, right? I mean, it was a kind of a scary time, and that's not. It was also 22. We all were having struggles then, but they were thinking the doors were going to be ending. And so we're about to close on a deal. And I was the part I liked the most is that it wasn't we told them, don't go get a bank loan. Right. So if the bankers are listening out there, I'm not saying never get a bank loan, but I said, this is not one where you want to get a bank loan. I said, so we designed a very unique salary continuation model, smaller seller note, and some other incentive structures to where and demonstrated to her financially. I'm saying this is a better deal than a bank loan in all of these ways, and it's a better deal in this case for the seller. Now, granted, he could have had if he did get a bank loan, he's de-risked. Right, but even in his situation, he needed some others
to carry a note.
Yeah, he wanted. Well, he didn't. He would have to have carried a note, but he also would have probably not have been able to step away as cleanly or as easily or emotionally, because he didn't want to just be done. Right, there was that type of stuff. So that's a long answer, but I think it's been only because it's recent. It has been the most enjoyable to see this come about, see her rise up.
What period of time did this evolve over?
12 years?
Well, I mean, I've been with 12 years, but it was only possible, I would say, in the last 5. Because I had to work pretty hard with them to, I mean, he was like very many other owners. He had all of his eggs in the basket of the business. I was like, we're going to need to work to create wealth out of the business so that you do not need to sell for a lump sum cash. and
which is highly unlikely anyway.
which right, yeah, and so anyway, that's been fun. The other one is one that we're going on to what I call stage 2 of the purchase. Manufacturing client up in Noblesville, he had actually reached out to me 10 years ago, and we did some initial work, but he thought his daughter was going to come into the business and take it over, but that didn't work out as well. But then I didn't hear from him. And then literally 4 years ago, he called me back out of the blue, and I'm like, oh my gosh, how are you? And then he told me his story. And of course, unfortunately, and since that time, his wife had died. The business had gone through its own. He had to step back in, inject a lot of capital. But he had found 2 internal guys who really had stepped up to become really a good team.
Sure.
One was an operations guy, really operations and finance, and the other one was sales. And
Good combo.
a great combination. And granted, massively different risk profiles.
Yeah.
But that's exactly what you need, right?
Yeah.
You need these different risk profiles. And so he was, my client owner was convinced he needed to offer ownership to both of them, and both of them had to accept the offer. And so to have walked through with him to say, I think if we go down that path, you're going to lose one of the 2 and you need both.
Right.
He's like, what do you mean? He says, why wouldn't he want ownership? I'm like, because I don't think you recognize the risk profile. Right. That is not what he wants. Yep. And I had barely met the guy, right? I mean, I don't mean the owner, but I just knew in certain conversations, like, he was not going to take it. And sure enough, what came out in the discussions was, if he had even hinted at it, his wife would divorce him, not support him, right, and that sort of thing, under any structure.
Right. You're just not doing that.
Just not doing it, right? Yeah. And he said, look, I want to be paid well. I love doing what I'm doing. It's really fun to be. And he changed internally operations, found all of the best improvements, and has allowed the sales guy to just, I'm going to go sell the crap out of this, and then we can process it through, and they've made themselves into an extremely focused niche in the industrial manufacturing space.
Nice.
And to this day now, what's going on is they went from, literally when I first started working with them, again, 4 years ago, they were maybe making $200,000 a year. They'll hit over $1.5 million in EBITDA. Or in actual cash flow, not EBITDA, this year. And so the fun part is now, how do we go through this next tranche? This next tranche will be the older 75-year-old owner. How is he going to now truly start selling off his interest, right? And so those have been super fun to see those things come about, especially another demonstration. Internal purchases can work, right? They have to be structured well. You have to have, patient parties on all sides, and don't always listen to your advisors who say, you need to go get a cash deal, right? Or go get a bank loan.
Right.
Because the bank in that instance, when they were telling my client and the 2 guys, even though only one was buying, we could 100% SBA finance this deal. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, okay, let's do the math. Maybe you can. I said, but here's the problem. The minute something goes wrong, you're done, right? Everyone's done, right? And, my client would be done financially and all the other stuff. Sure enough, 9 months later, after the first tranche was purchased by the one of the 2 guys, they went. That's right. It was COVID.
No.
So all of the supply chain stuff post COVID, or it wasn't 20, it was 21, but all the supply chain disaster, and their business went damn near flat.
Yeah.
Which means
if it had been owned by the bank would have come knocking.
Yeah. Debt service coverage is out of whack.
We wouldn't. Yeah. I'm like, guys, maybe you could, but it's not
line of credit.
Yeah.
Yep. Call your loan.
Right. So again, there's always a place for a bank loan, but it was just more of in this discussion. It's like, there needs to be some level of flexibility. A lot of other options, and we have to come to the table and be patient in the conversation.
Nice.
Right. So
I remember what I was going to ask you now.
Oh, go ahead.
Do you think owners go through, I don't want to call them phases, but a timeline where they are so heads down and just cranking away, right? Doing good work, making product, whatever it is. But they kind of just wake up one morning, I'll call it, and they start thinking about an exit, some future thing.
Mm-hmm.
where they truly just come to the realization that, holy moly, this isn't $1 million or a $500,000 business anymore. It's a 5 or 10 or 15. And the weight of that kind of hits them. Do you see that happening as well?
Was only because almost all of them are always heads down.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, again, most, I have, of all of my clients, I'd say 30% are multi-generation type of places, right? But almost all the others are first generation. So therefore, every single one of them, we're nose down, right? And when everyone starts out as chief cook and bottle washer, it's a challenge for them to say, how do I take off a hat? Right. And not just it's not there's some roles they don't want to be doing, but it's like their thought process is, I'm the best one at this, right? I can't take that hat off and watch somebody else struggle and whatever, because I can just do it better myself. And so it's, how do you take the hat off and allow that other thing to develop so you can keep stepping back? So yeah, I see it all the time.
Good. Confirms my thought. That's good.
It's fixable. But this is where delegation is not the same as abdication. And yet I think they have confused those terminologies, that they think if they delegate something that they're abdicating the responsibility for it, right? And those are the barriers, almost always the barriers to where the reason the owner's pretty good at it is they got to make mistakes. Now, granted, they knew they took risks. They didn't know they were taking risks, right? They didn't see it as risks in the moment. I work with, like you all do, all the time, and they're worth, business-wise, millions and millions of dollars. But if let's say we mention the stock market, that's too risky. Like, 90% of your wealth is the business. That's risky. That's riskier than what you would have than what you'd be normally seeing in a stock portfolio type of thing. But again, this is what they know, and so therefore what they know is no longer really risky to them in that same way.
That's a great point.
And the roles that exist it comes in the same way. Well, how do I take this? How do I allow somebody else to do it? And if I don't allow them to do it without always fixing it for them, they don't learn from those mistakes that the owner got to learn from.
Correct.
Huge benefit.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you're obviously very passionate about helping business owners, whatever a legacy means to them, helping them create that outcome for them and their business. What do you do outside of that? I know you spend a lot of time running several miles a week. Tell us about that.
The one that I got back into, so I was, the direct answer to that one is I'm a soccer referee. Right. And that was a passion that I had to go back and feed after having hung up my cleats back after high school. Right. I played soccer in high school, and actually I played soccer all the way from 6th grade or 6 years old all the way up until high school, but then hung up the cleats both playing soccer and refereeing soccer as I got into college. Wow. And then fortunately, my kids loved sports, right? My son loved soccer, soccer and baseball. My daughter was softball, mostly softball. She was not a soccer player. And so I got a chance to not only watch them, but then also coach them both, right?
Sure.
Coach my son in baseball. I could not be a soccer coach, right? That's the one thing I couldn't do. I could play it, I just couldn't coach it. Baseball I could coach, softball I could coach. I got to do all of that. But obviously that amount of time growing up, on top of everything else we're doing, I couldn't also now go spend, on the weekends 5 or 6 hours refereeing soccer games, right? So as I saw my son's, sort of soccer career coming to an end, I'm like, I have got to get back. I said that all growing up. I'm going to get back into refereeing. I'm going to get back into refereeing.
What was the drive? What was pulling you to it?
I missed it.
Yeah.
I missed doing it. I really did. In high school, I loved doing it.
Yeah.
It really wasn't the money. It pays well, but it wasn't the money. Maybe in high school it isn't now. But the other one is being back and watching youth soccer. I love watching it. I love today watching these young kids play. And there's some really bad talent and there's some really good talent. And I don't mean the MLS Next or the those high level academies. I just love watching soccer. Yeah. And if I can be in it, I mean, in many ways, it is coaching too. And even though it's not direct coaching, it is coaching.
Right.
It is that relation because it's communication. And I have many times in refereeing soccer, I've failed at communication, not only with a coach, but with players, right? But then also it's taught me a tremendous amount of how to even better communicate. And it translates back into life. It turns back into communicating even with kids or my own kids, and as well as even into the business world, right?
And there's a paid exercise program.
And there's yes now I get paid to go exercise.
That's it.
Because it's literally especially if it's a high level game, even if it's a U13 game, all the way up to if it's a high level game, I'm going to be in. If I'm running center, each game will be 3 to 4 miles. Oof. Right, is the steps that I'll put. I'm not always sprinting that much, but that's the steps I'm doing in a game.
Right.
Now, if I'm the AR, which is the sideline refs, those will be anywhere from 2 miles to 2.5 to maybe almost 3 miles. Here's my take, though. While I run more as a center ref, I hurt more as an AR. Because
it's constant use of the same muscles.
It is, and you're running at angles, right? Because you have to be, you're running this way and you're looking this way, right? And again, you get to these, especially these 16, 17, and 18-year-old kids.
Yeah.
They're fast.
You've got to keep ahead,
and I've got to keep with them, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so some of it's also a challenge, right? It's kind of like skiing. I mean, that's the other kind of the thing. I love snow skiing and water skiing, and I fortunately grew up. I got to ski a lot. So black diamonds, double black diamonds, let me at them, right? So today it's more of a, do I still got this?
Okay.
And so even in soccer, when I'm running, whether it's the ARs or the center, there's still a bit of, do I still got this? Can I keep up with these kids? I mean, granted, trust me, I was never known as a fast, I'm an athlete, but I was not a fast athlete, right? But it has been somewhat of a joy to not only watching soccer, but say, I could keep up with that kid. That was pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
He's still faster than me. If I had to do that all game, I'm dead. Right? Don't put me on defense. Put me in goal.
Yeah.
But so those are the kind of that's the pull. That's the challenge. The excitement. And the ability to be known. And granted, I've also met a whole new community.
Sure.
One of the greatest things, because I'm from Oklahoma, so when I got here and then working many years outside of Indianapolis, I realized in 1995, before when I started my business or the financial services business, I'm like,
you don't know
I don't know anybody here.
Right.
I don't know anybody.
Sure.
So some of my greatest friends and families that we still all connect with came from Little League, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Little League baseball, Little League softball. Had it not been for Little League, as Broad Ripple Haverford Little League, had it not been for that, I wouldn't have known half of the people that I know now in Indianapolis.
Yeah.
And so all of those types of things. And now, so fast forward a little bit, the soccer community is now a different one. We knew a bunch of them. We got to know a bunch when our kids were playing in the travel soccer community. Now it's a whole different set of individuals on the referee side and the coaches. So knowing now a lot more ADs at high schools and the head coaches at some of these high schools who also sometimes coach travel soccer.
Sure.
And then the referees, the camaraderie of the referees. I mean, I have 4 or 5 referees who are always asking, hey, if there's a tournament and T-Ray's on it, can we be assigned to go be together on a game? And it's fun. It's like, hey, I know who that is. We can trust each other. And therefore, some of them some were faster than me and some were not as fast as me. But I know how to trust them because we've worked with each other enough. So that's been the fun part.
Yeah.
Nice.
And if it's not those type of exercise things like skiing, snow or water skiing, I'm pheasant hunting.
That's
Okay.
Yeah,
I knew that was
it's
going to be
pheasant
in
hunting.
there.
Yeah. North Dakota.
Yeah, if I could find quail up here, I'd go quail hunting too, because that's what all there was in Oklahoma. I love quail hunting, but there's just not as many. But pheasant hunting, where there's some good preserves, and I don't mean the, twist their head and shove it on the wing and throw it underneath the bush type of plant and hunt. But there's some good preserves that, about 2 hours from here towards Ohio, and then down south. I haven't been to there's a newer one down south in Indiana I haven't been to yet, but I've heard it's great. Or I can go up to Wisconsin and some other friends. But my trip that I enjoy the most is going out to South Dakota, and in a town near an Indian reservation, but essentially it's about an hour and a half south of Pierre, South Dakota. It's called Winter. Winter is the town, and so we are on we go hunt on this family's farm, who they've created this all-inclusive 3-day pheasant wild bird operation. It's wild. There's no planting here. This is all wild birds. So
with dogs and
with dogs and
the whole bit. Yeah.
with dogs. So
So how did you discover you liked pheasant hunting so much?
well, there was, granted, whenever we would go my dad had, in his world of estate and business planning, he had also he was an owner of a really small owner, but he was part owner of a bank. He got into it because of the legal side he was in, and the bank was in Buffalo, Oklahoma. Well, Buffalo, Oklahoma was within like 3 miles of the Kansas border, and so we'd go up and see the president of the bank, and then he'd take us all hunting. We'd go quail hunting because that's still mostly quail out there. But if you get just over the Kansas border, there's pheasant. Right, there's some pheasant, right, and so I got exposed to pheasant hunting through all of that. Those are big birds; those are pretty cool, right? Yeah. Not as many as the quail, but there's big. As well, there's more if you go farther in Kansas or you go into North Dakota or South Dakota. There's a lot more. Well, to me at that point, South Dakota sounded like, you might as well take me to Alaska. I mean, that sounds so far, right? Yes. Type of thing. But my dad finally got with all of his buddies. He went to this Jurgensen family farm in Winter, South Dakota. Through his accountant. So his accountant had all these doctors, and these doctors took him, the accountant, up and then invited my dad to go hunting one year. And when my dad went to go hunting in South Dakota at this place, he came back and says, T-Ray, guess what? You are joining me next year. And
so the legacy started.
So the legacy started under that side. And I happened to go probably at the absolute prime of any bird hatching population of pheasant. There was, whenever we'd go quail hunting in Oklahoma, of course, you either have the quail or the meadowlarks. Because the meadowlarks look a little like, or a lot like quail. The difference is they have some yellow color and they don't flap their wings in the same way, but it's very easy to get confused. Well, there was a series of time when in quail hunting, I got to love quail hunting without the stories that my dad always told me about how many quail he would find in Oklahoma. And we'd go out and we'd say 1 or 2 coveys in a morning, right? That maybe 30 birds total, right? But it was a great walk. But we'd always see meadowlarks. I'm like, these darn meadowlarks. Like, can I just shoot these? Well, they're songbirds. You can't shoot songbirds. Right. So therefore, patience of learning and all this other stuff. And so I never got spoiled in quail or even pheasant hunting. I just didn't know what I didn't know. I heard stories, but I never experienced it. Dad took me up that first year to South Dakota, and I have never seen more birds fly that I could actually shoot in my life. Right. I mean, they were just all over the place. It was so, in fact, there were a couple of drives that were, when I say drives, you're walking through, through corn or maize or whatever the case. There's a couple of drives. I was so overwhelmed because I'm like, I don't know where to shoot because they're all over the place. Right. Oh, and by the way, you can't shoot the hens. Right. That's, quail, you can shoot, both male and female quail. In pheasant country, you can only shoot, they call them cocks or roosters, but you can only shoot the males.
Yeah, right.
When you see hundreds of birds flying, you don't know what you're shooting at.
How do you ID it?
You can't. The good news is you can ID it. I had not had that much experience at that point. That's why it's so overwhelming. The roosters, the cocks, when they get up, they have a certain call, right? And so there's a garbly call, and it's very distinct. And they also have, 9 times out of 10, they have a longer tail. And so by recognition, you do it, but you have to see a lot of them at first to recognize it. Because quail get up and it's that pattern. And if you get 10 or 15 of them, it's kind of startling because it sounds like a machine gun going off under your feet. When you have a pheasant going up, which is 10 times the size of a quail.
Oh, really?
They flap in the same way as a quail does, but they're bigger wings. So now it's a really big machine gun, right? It's like a helicopter, but there's 5 or 6 of them going off underneath your feet, right? I mean, it's extremely startling, but it's very thrilling. It's all with a shotgun, so it's all safe, right? It's all really safe.
I think I'll stand back.
I always wonder why. What was it? Dick Cheney. Dick Cheney. So that whole Dick Cheney story. Trust me, there's been a lot. In fact, Technically, I did shoot my dad in this exact pheasant hunt.
No kidding.
I granted, not intentional, but
sorry.
So we're in this particular field, and in this field, at the end, kind of rose up the hill, went up, and so I'm at this back end, and we're called blockers, right? So we're stationary, and they are all spread out in a kind of a semicircle, and they're pushing. They're walkers, but they're pushing all the birds here, and so it's far away at first. I mean, it's they start out half a mile away and they kind of walk through, but when you get to the end. And we're up here and they're down over here, the bird's going up. Even if you're shooting into the sky, they have to fall.
Yes.
You know, the bullets are supposed to keep traveling. They end up falling. So I didn't necessarily recognize maybe how close they were. And so when I pulled the shot, again, I heard this call from my, ow! I'm like, shoot. And sure enough, Dad had a little red mark here, a little red mark here. And of course, outside the glasses, you always wear glasses and these things. Right. But, he had these pellet marks in here. It was a scrape.
That's a little close for comfort.
It was. So therefore,
I have to get the tweezers.
No, it didn't. He didn't. Right? But I pulled the Dick Cheney. So
there you go.
Didn't have any. Nobody had to go to the hospital.
You got a new nickname.
So do you also hunt waterfowl?
No, I have hunted waterfowl. And the same as with geese. Here's what I don't like, I'm going to call it deer or turkey. All these things, right? Because I know this is big deer land, right? A lot of people love deer and even turkey. Here's what I don't like. I don't like going somewhere and sitting in the absolute darkness in 30-degree weather or water, right? You're sitting in water, cold, when you can't talk, right? And you have to just wait. You can't move.
Yeah. Right.
So, again, where I was raised quail hunting, you're walking. You have to walk. I could go out in 10 or 15-degree weather. Pheasant hunting can be the same way. Sure, you're bundled up at first. You go a couple of walks, you're starting to shed clothes. You're shedding because you're sweating.
Right.
And you can talk and you can engage and you can see country and you see the dogs work and you see the birds fly. All this other stuff that is just cool. Right. And the interactions amongst your other hunters, like, hey, don't get up in front so I don't shoot you. Right. Those type of things. Yeah. Or stay back, or here's how we want to navigate this stuff. Again,
a lot more camaraderie.
Yeah, people love duck hunting. I'm not going to say what they love goose hunting. One of the reasons I never will goose hunt again is the time I went as a kid. We went out to a farm in western Oklahoma, and they had this concrete basin. Right, again, concrete basin, right, and so they had all this thicket, and so they said, here, bundle up and go sit here, lay down in this concrete basin with this thicket over you, and stay quiet. Right, and it's again 25 degrees and it's dark. I'm like, this isn't fun.
No, that's and it's cold.
And it's cold. I'm like, so again, that's the main reason I don't. If somebody invited me, would I go? Sure. But it's not something I'm going to go plan a trip to do. Right. So that's just me.
Yeah.
Switch gears a little bit.
Okay.
Family.
Yeah.
You got a DePaul legacy.
I do, which I didn't expect us to have a DePaul legacy.
It's definitely not a Wabash legacy.
It is definitely not a Wabash legacy. And we've made sure of that one, right? And nobody is also marrying others.
Right, there we go.
So
I love that commercial. I love that commercial. What is it, Geico, where the kid shows up at the door?
Yes, with the dude. North Carolina. I should have paid attention. I love it too. It's classic. Yeah. So I grew up in small town Oklahoma City, or small school in Oklahoma City, but I'd gone to school with the same kids, literally since like preschool, right? Same group of kids, and so your world's a little small. And so when I got to graduation, our counselor said, "Where do you want to go to school?" And I said, "Well, out of state." And when I say out of state,
somewhere else,
somewhere where I can't drive home in 3 hours, right? I just want to. I don't want to. Now, you look at the statistics today, most kids, when I say most, probably 90, 95 or more % will go to school within 4 hours of where they grew up. Yeah. Nothing wrong with that. That's just what happens. I don't know how I knew it, but I knew I'm like, if I'm at school anywhere inside of that 4 hour window, I'll come home. Yeah. Right. Too often. And I'll miss the experience of college. So out of state, liberal arts, where hardly anyone has ever gone to school there from my high school, especially recently. And I could play sports. And our counselor says, well, of course, then you should go look at DePaul. I'm like, oh, sure, the Blue Demons in Chicago. He says, no, which of course is what everybody gets to see. Right. Yes. I said, so my joke now is, no, we are the winners, not the losers. So DePaul in Greencastle, Indiana. And of course I said, where's Indiana?
Yeah, where?
And yet, which is really fascinating because one of my most favorite things to do as a kid growing up in the summertime was watch the Indianapolis 500.
Yeah.
We'd go to the lake in eastern Oklahoma, and on Sunday mornings we would flip on the Indy 500, not thinking the Indy 500's in Indianapolis,
Right.
which is an Indy. I mean, again, it's just one of those like how did I not know? This is why they say kids just don't have they haven't had their full frontal cortex developed. How did I not know that? So anyway, DePauw was one of about 8 schools I went to go visit, right, all out of state. And I clearly remember coming on campus with my mother, just driving on after seeing all of the other schools, and the other school that was anywhere close to it was Miami of Ohio.
Right.
But I'm like, oh, this is it. I'm home.
Yeah.
So my wife I met there. So she was a Navy brat. And so her dad retired from the Navy in 1986, and then moved from Virginia. They actually traveled all over the world, but and hadn't lived really any place very, very long because he was always being moved in the military. But they settled in Champaign, Illinois, because he was working for Illinois Power, which is in Decatur, Illinois. And so my wife, Tia, she didn't know of any other schools except her friend of hers or mom's that they had met there said, you got to go look at DePauw. And so her choices were DePauw and Bradley, right? And she loved DePauw just like I did. And so we met, and we didn't get married until 2 years after college, right? So we were great friends. I was a waiter at her sorority, right? So she married the help, right? So, so she married the help. And then we had kids, and we did stuff like we'd host on telecast parties. And I still remember distinctly that we were hosting a telecast party, and my wife was in the hospital having delivered our daughter, Audrey, on November the 13th. And that specific day was the Monon telecast party. And I said, dearie, you okay? Good. So I got to go to the party because I'm hosting it, right? And she says, okay, I'll see you afterwards. And then our kids went to all these Monon parties, and we took them back to go see it. And literally for probably 15 years, our kid says, we'll never go to DePauw. This is where you are. We don't
I've heard that one before.
It's all those types of things. And so both of our completely were convinced neither were going to go to DePauw. We thought Thomas is going to go to Worcester in Ohio because he enjoyed the coach out there. He was going to play soccer, great school, but he realized he was not. Worcester, you've got to be it's a very research-oriented college, which is fantastic. But he and I walked through and were like, okay, these are not the same kids it's just different personalities, right? And we also thought our daughter was going to go to Wofford, which it's all these W schools, right? Just not Wabash, right? Anyway, so was going to go to Wofford, which is in Spartanburg, South Carolina. Okay. And if you've never been there, Spartanburg is an incredible town.
Sure. I've been there.
When all of us were like, oh, this place is spectacular, the town and the school. Convinced Audrey was going to go there. Neither of them said that. They said last minute, you know what? Every time I would go look at some other school, I ended up comparing them to DePauw. And if I could pick it, and my daughter specialist, if I could pick up DePauw and go put it in South Carolina, I would have gone there. Yeah. Right. But I can't. And so they both went to DePauw. So now we have, as of Sunday, our second child, Audrey, has graduated from DePauw. So we now have 4 DePauw folks. And her boyfriend this is even funnier. This is where the small world of these schools come into play. Her boyfriend, now of 3 years, is also a DePauw graduate who was a fraternity brother of mine. So he was a Phi Psi and I was a Phi Psi. However, his dad was a DePauw graduate from our year in 1991, and his dad was a Beta. So anyway, DePauw kind of goes around. We still get along. Well, we had to because his son was a Phi Psi. So he had to like me and Phi Psi, all that stuff. But yes, and we love both these. And then my son Thomas, he's been dating. His girlfriend did not go to DePauw, right? So that's maybe we missed the whole legacy piece, right? But anyway.
But also not Wabash.
Also not. Well, it'd be hard for her to go to Wabash.
Yeah, it's
right. She could try to break the rule, but I'm not sure that would actually work really well. So anyway, long story on DePauw, but yes, long legacy. There's a lot of legacy families, but what I found is even more fascinating about DePauw is how many legacy families have been 5 generation. Right. So 5 generations of DePauw graduates.
That's really cool.
Astounding, right? Yeah. So to just be on the 2nd generation is pretty cool. That's neat. But it's kind of like a 2-time winner of the Indy 500 versus the 5-time winner, right?
There is a big difference.
You're getting there. Right? You're getting there. Time, right? Yeah.
Well, T-Ray, thanks for joining us today.
Absolutely. This has been an absolute pleasure.
It.
No, this is we do this again whenever we want to. So, you guys doing something for Memorial Day?
Hopefully not.
That's the goal. Cook out.
Maybe cook out
Okay.
and watch the
You
race.
want to go to the race? Okay,
Yeah.
I'm going to go to the
No.
race. We're not going to the race.
No.
Okay. Well,
My patio.
I'm an F1 fan.
I'll tell you how it is. Well, that's my son. He's a huge F1 fan.
Yeah.
So anyway, but thanks you guys. I really appreciate
Yeah,
it.
thank
This is
you.
fun. We'll do
How
it
do
again.
people get a hold of you?
Oh, well, gosh, they need to hold
Family
it.
Business Legacies.com? Or
Yes. So website, Family Business Legacies, plural LEGACIS.com.
Okay.
That's really the easiest way. It's a website. You know,
That
it's
works.
got my phone number on there, email on there, whatever the case may be. So,
T.Ray.
yeah, no, it's not. Yeah.
It's not Trey.
You need to find that.
We spent this whole episode thinking your name was Trey.
That's right. You've got to come up. You got to buy the domain T.Ray.
Oh, I do. Well, that's a good idea, right? But then even the computers will still hate it. 'cause
It's got to be DOT.
Yes.
T-D-O-T.
Troy.Ray.
There's a story behind the brand, right?
Right,
There
exactly.
you go.
That's it.
Right. All right. That's awesome. Thanks, guys.
You're
Appreciate
welcome.
it. You bet.
That's awesome.
Let's go!